As hopefully you know, I'm Craig, and work on trying to help educators do things in an effective way as possible when it comes to teaching and learning. And so the objective today is I just want to show you, if you've never done it before, I want to bring you into our online course. I want to show you a little bit around there, as some of you may not have seen the new course that we developed. And then I want to show you one or two fun little interesting things. And then for those who are here, you probably hope that not too many join. I see more are joining. There will be a little lucky draw. So let's get to it. What I want to do is I want to bring you on a quick little whirlwind tour of active connected teaching course. So we're going to leap in, and I want to just show you a trick. So this is really, as I said, I wanted to do this quickly, give you a little taste. And so much like the sprinting elephant, let's have a look at the problem, and then a little bit of a look at what are some of the ways we can actually try and deal with teaching in our modern era. Now, very quickly, what has been shown quite often to be the key issues when it comes to modern teaching is that, in fact, probably one of the most important issues that my research has pointed out is that there's low interaction in teaching and learning. Especially with the big shift to online, we've tended to simply move content online, because that's essentially what happened in 2020. We were in an urgent phase and we just dumped content online. And we're now starting to see a pushback from that because students aren't finding it very engaging. So on top of this, there's been this just explosion of technology. There's so many cool apps, and I'm going to show you one or two, but there are so many cool apps. But so how do you make sense of all of these cool apps so that you can address problem number one? And also, if you do learn about it, how do you bridge the gap between often what you sit learning behind a computer and when you're actually in the real world? And I think this is specifically important, and I'll touch on that in a moment. So those are three key issues that we need to deal with. Now, typically what happens when we come to the whole thing of teaching with technology, we tend to conflate two things. And the one is using technology with teaching technology. And often teachers, lecturers, etc., are exposed to courses that show them technology, that show them how to use a whole range of great tools, and there are many of them. But that's not necessarily the same as learning how to teach with technology. So what's really important is that we cover both of these. And for most people, you probably relatively comfortable with using various technologies, and obviously that's something we can keep learning, but we also need to know how to teach with that technology. And I'll see, as Keith says, content overload has already sent us down a lecturing path, and that's absolutely true, that often we so overloaded with the content that the best we can do is just like try and dump it on the people. And trying to set up online spaces and effective online spaces isn't an easy thing, and it does take time. But I think there are small things that we can do that can quite quickly empower us and empower our students in an engaging way. So what was my approach to this? Well, some years back, trying to understand what was really going wrong, and this was way before COVID, but what was going wrong with teaching with technology. I did my PhD in this and subsequent research in this, and eventually wrote a book trying to make it simple that was called the Activated Classroom Teaching Book. And that's all very well, have a book. But again, writing a book is not really what this is about, because at the end of the day, we've got to get the content of this book to an online space. And so that's essentially what I spent the last 5 years doing, is building a variety of courses that are based on this book and underlying research beneath the book that try and not only explain how we can be effective teachers, both in a blended situation and an online situation, but also showing how this is possible. I've actually been exposed to a lot of recently instructional designer courses. And when I look at these instructional designer courses, it's interesting. A lot of them are really good, but there's always a disconnect. And I find this a little bit concerning when a course tells you about how you should be teaching, especially an instructional designer course, but doesn't actually apply those same approaches in the course itself. And so you think, well, surely if there's any course that should be doing that, it should be this particular course. And so part of the challenge when I was building these courses was not only to try and teach educators how to teach in an effective and in an activated way, but also to demonstrate that in the course itself. Otherwise, it obviously is doesn't sort of ring true. So I want to give you a quick little tour inside, have a quick look around the Active Connected Teaching course, and just cover very quickly how it looks at this e-island, its interactive, its toolbox, and its learn and do approach. So very quickly, for those who haven't seen this before, the course, and specifically the course that I want to bring you on a quick tour, and there's several other courses which are somewhat bigger. This is much more of a shorter course, takes about 30 hours to work through, obviously depending on how much time you put into it. But this particular course tries to help educators orient in the new era, and built around a metaphor called the e-education island that essentially has two parts to it. It's got a digital zone, which I call the third EdTech era, and it's got the connected zone on the right-hand side, which is the fourth EdTech era. And these are the two spaces that teaching happens at the moment. We're either in this third EdTech era on the digital zone or in the fourth EdTech era on the connected zone. It also has a north and a south, because teaching can either be teacher-led, what we're doing at the moment, or it can be self-paced. And tends to be a combination of all of these. Now, what tends to happen is we move through these zones, but often a lot of our time is spent on this left-hand island. And the real gains are to be had on the right-hand island, where we start to activate our teaching and learning. So come on over with me now. I'm going to show you. You don't have to really go anywhere, even though he's saying come. You just got to stay where you are. And I'm just going to quickly show you around some of the elements of the course. So this is the active connected teaching course. And essentially, as I said, it's a course that covers that map, as I showed you earlier. And the way the course works is it starts by introducing the concept of a 21st century map and how teaching has changed. And I think that's quite important that we understand that. And having done that, as I showed in the map, there are two sides. There is a digital zone and a connected zone. And so the course then starts with the digital zone. Again, it deals with both the self-paced and the teacher-led aspects of the digital zone. And so the course works through various technologies that you need when you're teaching, whether it be something like Zoom or PowerPoint or Moodle or Google Slides or whatever it may be. These are technologies. And so the course works through these technologies. There's videos on them, there's lessons on them, showing you how you can use these technologies either in a self-paced way or in a teacher-led way. Having gone through the digital third EdTech area, we then need to go to what I call the crossing over. And this is where we have to understand the pedagogies that are going to help us shift from the digital zone into the connected zone. And I'll have a look at that, something of this in just a moment. And so there are a variety of lessons on this. And then it finally moves to the connected teaching zone. And this is really where the essence of the course happens. This is where the real power is. And we look at the series of pedagogies, which are curation, conversation, correction, creation, and chaos. And we also then look at all of these pedagogies, not only in terms of doing blended learning, but also how to do it in a live environment. If you are doing this sort of Zoom type teaching and learning, how to do that and how you can bring all these pedagogies together. And then finally, there's a last little section where there are some challenges, which essentially are some creative assessments, and then the conclusion. Now, just to give you a little sense of the course, I've now jumped into the area which is called the crossing over. And in this area, there are, as most areas are, there are videos, and the videos are obviously trying to explain concepts. But again, it's not simply about having a video, it's also about showing you how you can activate that video. So again, when you come to watch this video, you'll see if I play it now. Conversation to correction, creation. The video is going to play, but embedded in the video are questions. And these questions help you reflect on the content. And this is an illustration of applying the pedagogy of correction. So we are not going to change I think if I remember correctly, the technology. All we are going to do is add a layer of pedagogy. Let me see if I actually remember my own stuff. Yeah, got it. And what we're going to do, so you can continue. So again, really important in how this teaching approach works is to make sure that it's activated, that the student's experience of learning how to teach is actually an activated experience. And so the videos have these sort of layers of questions and other things built around them. I'm not going to really talk about, but there's also a lot to do with stash items, which are hidden items all over the course, to try and make sure that people are reading really carefully. I've got a big course that runs based around this for student teachers. And those student teachers spend a lot of time trying to come back to me. I can't find a specific item. And I think, well, that's fantastic. That means you're really reading carefully, but now you've got to really search. And that often encourages them that little level of gamification. Just to then dive into one of the lessons, just to give you an example. So here is a lesson where we start looking at the power of curation as a pedagogy. And so the lessons obviously consist of some basic text, and there's going to be images. So in this one, we're looking at curation. There will be videos, as I said earlier, and the lesson will go through various things. And there'll be activities as well. And you'll eventually get down to a point where there are a variety of curation tools that'll be explained that you can then have a look at. But what's also important, as I said, is that for every lesson, you actually are doing what you're learning about. So in this lesson, you're learning about the pedagogy of curation. And so very briefly, curation is the organizing of content into a place. And there are a lot of great tools that we can use for this. And so in this lesson, there'll be opportunities to actually get active and to curate content. And so in this particular lesson, we're using Padlet. So here is an embedded thing that the students now get involved in. We've learned how to use Padlet early on, and you actually get involved in this particular lesson of adding your own apps to this Padlet that you think would be useful under various categories. So again, you're just experiencing what you're learning, which is really important. And then at the end of every single lesson, and this is what's really important, I talked about why it's so key to try and make a transition from theory and practice. You can learn all of this. You can even try the tools, but how do you transition from what you're hearing to actually doing in the classroom? And I found the best way to do this, and most educators know this, is to have some form of lesson plan. And so the plan is then, there's a bit of a pun, is that you now build your own lesson plan around what you've just learned. And so there is an example that can be downloaded, and then you download a template and you build a lesson plan, applying the pedagogy, applying the tools that you've seen, or whichever one of the tools you think is appropriate, to design a lesson in your context. But what's really cool is there's what's called the lesson plan repository. Now, in the lesson plan repository, there are hundreds of lesson plans already here. You can browse other people's lesson plans to see what they have. There are a variety of ways of doing this. You can search by grade, and this goes from grade 1, and it's also got higher education. You can search by subjects, or you can just type in a search term over here and find a lesson plan to do with something. So there's hundreds and hundreds of lesson plans that people have already built, and these give you a great idea of what is possible. So I've just opened one already. Here is one. This is actually, I think, a university level one, physics in first year. As I said, but there's school level, etc. So here is one to do with colors, and it's obviously not my area, but it's something to do with colors and mixing of colors and whatever. And so the lesson plan is here, and these lesson plans are called activated lesson plans because they deal with what I call the what, why, how, why approach. What you're going to cover, most lesson plans do that, which is really important. Very important. Why is this lesson so important? And this is what helps our students get motivated. So we cover the why that they are learning this content. Then what typically is missing in most lesson plans is how you're going to cover it. What's the pedagogy? What's the approach? And so this particular lesson plan, there's going to be two parts to it. There's going to be a conversation pedagogy and a correction pedagogy. And there are the various tools that are going to be used. And there's also an explanation of why this approach is being used, which again helps the student appreciate the reason they're going through the various activities and exercises that they are going through. All of the pedagogies help develop very important 21st century skills. And so the person who put this together said these are the skills that are likely to be developed using this particular lesson plan. And then they've got links to the tools, to the apps that are going to support this lesson plan. And this is really cool. So for example, you'll see there's some links to a great tool called PlayPosit, which is explained in the lessons. Kahoot, many of you will be aware of, but let me just show you. I've opened it already. So for this one, they created a Kahoot around light and color mixing. And so you can actually play as a guest, you could copy it and reuse it as yours for your own if you were doing a similar sort of thing. So again, you're not only getting access to a lesson plan, you're also getting access to the lessons and the technologies that people have applied using a specific pedagogy to that lesson. And so this really opens up your mind to so many possibilities. So the idea of this was to be able to take theory, think about how I would apply in a lesson, see what others have done, and then leave with your own lesson plan, a lesson plan that you can go to the classroom and say, I'm going to try this. And this is what I believe really has made a huge impact in bridging the gap between hearing and doing, between theory and practice, between sitting behind the computer and actually having to do it for ourselves. The other aspect, the other aspects that's also very exciting is for all of the lessons that you learn, I also then lift the veil to show you my thinking when I was designing this, because I've designed a course here. So for example, this is a particular part of the course that is to do with teaching curation. And so I've got all my sections here on curation. But why did I design it like this? Why did I include certain things in here the way I did? And that's what this behind the scenes here is. Behind the scenes is basically showing, I will show you the lesson plan that I used to design this particular lesson on curation. And so here is my lesson plan on what I did, an explanation of the what, the why, the how, links to tools that were used, etc., and even additional resources as well. So you're actually getting multiple views as to how you can use a particular pedagogy. You're getting your own experience through it, actually trying it. You're getting views of other educators who have done something and built a lesson plan. You're getting my behind the scenes view of how I designed it and why it was designed like that. And all of these are helping scaffold you to be able to do this for yourselves, because I think it doesn't take a lot of time before it becomes something, yeah, actually, I think I can do that. And it's not something that needs a huge investment. And I've particularly tried to design the course that it is something that you can jump around with. As you can see, even I'm just jumping anywhere. But once you get a sense of what's going on here, you can very easily say, oh, you know, I would be interested specifically in the connected zone because this is really effective. I'm interested in conversation and what I could do with that. And so you can quite quickly jump into that aspect of the course and look at some aspects of it, learn about conversation. But I knew that's something people were going to want to do. So what I built as well is what we call the ACT Toolbox, because after all, learning isn't always necessarily sequential. It's nice when it's sequential. Some people like it to be sequential. Start at the start and work your way through. And it may be like that for you. But typically you get to the class or there's a lesson that you need to plan and you think, hey, we learned something on, I don't know what it was. We learned something on using Zoom and doing something cool with Zoom. Well, we created what's called the ACT Toolbox. And the ACT Toolbox essentially takes these lessons and brings them together in a different format. So I just searched for Zoom here. Now it's going to tell me all the places and all the lessons where you can find something on Zoom. So at the moment, this little app that I'm using over here, that's called Mentimeter. And I'm using Mentimeter with Zoom. Here is a lesson on using Mentimeter and Zoom. There's another lesson on Zoom. It's a hack on how to change virtual backgrounds, etc., etc. So you can quickly go and find things, or you can browse by categories. So if you want to look at some certain specific category, you can look at a category. I want to look at what you've got to do with correction and how I can use that as a pedagogy. Again, in this, there will be everything from videos to links that are active to tools, etc. So this provides a really nice way for you to get to the content either while you're learning or afterwards. And again, it helps bridge the gap. It helps make the switch from what you're hearing to what you're doing a lot easier. Because after all, we can't remember all of this stuff. Well, here's a nice way for you to keep the content in your brain. In fact, there's even a little notepad that you can take notes in. You can even do what I've done over here. You'll see curated content. You can save any pages in your own lists. So you can create a list of, oh, that's a page. I need to remember that. I like that lesson. And so you can basically bookmark content as well. So the whole interface is designed to try and make it as easy as possible to both go through it and learn, but also to then apply it in the classroom and to remember things that maybe you've forgotten. So that really is the very short and quick tour around the Active Connected Teaching course. And as I said, this particular course, people say, well, how long does it take? Well, we normally say it takes around about 30 hours to complete, but it really depends on how much time and effort you put in. If you just have to watch the videos and really do nothing, you could probably finish it in 3 or 4 or 5 hours. If you are going to engage with the content, obviously that is going to take you longer because that's where the learning happens, building your lesson plans, doing the various activities, trying the quizzes. That's where real learning happens. But we've catered for both things, that you can dip in or you can work through methodically, or you can do a combo of both. The course is a smaller course specifically aimed at educators who really want to try and activate their teaching and learning, both blended and online, as quickly and easily as possible. We have a longer version of the course, which is called our active micro degree, that takes each of the pedagogies and actually allows people to work through each one individually and has a whole lot more content. So that's also available for those who are interested. Right, so that was a quick tour around the course. What are the benefits of the active connected teaching certification? Well, as I said, it's all about learning through doing. And I think that's so critical, because that's really where learning happens, when we actually do things for ourselves. So if I'm going to teach you about curation or conversation or whatever it may be, you actually want to try it. You want to see what others have done with it. You want to see the tools and practice. And that's where learning happens. And then finish with something that you can take out of the course. As I said, there's flexible learning paths. So you can either work through all the lessons, or you can jump into the toolbox, search, filter, find your way around. And that toolbox keeps growing as we have new tools that we add to it. And obviously, very important, the bridge to practice. You leave with lesson plans that you can apply in your classroom, or go and look what others have done and take those lesson plans as a basis for something for what you're teaching. So that really makes the gap easier to cross. Right, so that was my quick, as I said, I was going to make it quick. Lifted the veil, showed you what the course is about, and I'm going to take some questions in a couple of minutes if there are any. But what I wanted to show you is something that you can try, and you don't necessarily need to do this now. If you just keep the link, you can try it later, and that is on our website, activatedacademy.com. So on the website, activatedacademy.com, you will see there is a link on the site called Act Tools. So when you get to the site, you will see there's a link called Act Tools. You pop along to that, and you'll see some examples of some tools, some that we've built and others that are really powerful. And I've given an example, one for each of the pedagogies. So let me give you a quick taster. So here are the various pedagogies that we cover on our course that are active pedagogies. And if, for example, you click on the chaos tool example, this is a tool that we developed that we call Act Quick. And this is a great tool if you want to get your students to focus. And this works on anything. I've used this on PhD students who can't figure out what their central thesis is about, to students in a classroom at the end of a lesson who are losing focus or whatever it may be. And I say, right, I want to know what you've learned. And typically the way I would use it in a classroom, this is just one example. I'll say, right, what I need you to do is I need you to go into Act Quick. I need you to set this to 3 minutes. It depends how cruel you're feeling. The more time, the harder it is. Hit submit. And now what I want you to do is I want you to type, what is the key takeaways you've had from our lesson today? And so the way the Act Quick works is you then start typing, this is what I learned, and you'll see across the top, there's a little countdown thing happening in the lesson. But now what happens if they take too long to type and they get distracted in their 3 minutes? You'll see it starts changing color. If they take too long and they start looking at the ant walking across the table or something, all of a sudden they lose everything that they've just typed and they've got to start again, which is obviously traumatizing, which is great fun actually in a class, but you hear these groans. And obviously that's why I say if you make it 3 minutes and you get to 2 minutes 30 and you hear a student go, oh no, that's really painful. And then typically what I would do is I would get them to either mail that to me, or if I was using Mentimeter, I'd get them to post it in an activity on Mentimeter so I could see what they had. But it's a great way to focus students. Doesn't matter where you are on the day, it doesn't matter how tired they are. You make them use Act Quick, and I tell you what, you'll have total focus for 2, 3, 4, or 5 minutes. And that's where real cognitive investment comes from, when we force that focus. And so that's just one of the tools. And I said there are others you can try. One of them, which is the one that I thought was particularly, no, not that one. I think it could be this one. I may actually have another lesson on this in the future. This particular tool is called EdApp. You'll see it at the top here, and you can try it out. But it's a great tool if you want to actually develop your own little sort of mobile app for your students, just like I've done here. And this is a little lesson that's going to be teaching them about curation, and you can try it later. But the tool itself is really powerful. And so this particular lesson will teach them about curation and all sorts of aspects of curation and how it works. But what's actually really interesting is how this tool works. And you can see there's word searches and all sorts of fun things that you can do in this tool. Right, so you can find all of those on Activated Academy, and those are under some of the tools that we have. So feel free to give those a try. They're really fun, activated tools, and they really get your students learning if they try them. And these are some of the tools that we cover on the course as well. So if you do the course, we will explain these in a lot more detail and how to apply them. Right, so that was the ACT tools. And then for you, what we are currently offering at the moment is access to our Active Connected Teaching course. If you are interested, this is our offer that we've got at the moment. You can find it on Activated Academy. We have a link to a free sign up on our course. And if you are interested in this, or if you're interested as a school and you want to take it for more than one teacher, we have some special deals for teachers as well. But you can find all of that on our page, Activated Academy, and it's under free trial there. And right, thank you for those who are here. Pity we lost a few in our dropout, and there were so many others that didn't come for some reason. But those of you who run webinars know that this is what happens. It's part of the exciting world we live in, and that's why we need to learn to teach in a teacher-led as well as in a self-paced, and because it doesn't always work for everyone at the same time.